James, Mindset is developing next-generation psychedelic treatments for neurological and mental health disorders. So what are the key things investors need to know?
Next generation psychedelic medications, really, we've been of the view from the beginning that that would be the area of the medical psychedelic market where there'd be the greatest opportunity for new value creation for two reasons. Number one, we've always believed, or scientists were of the view, that there's an opportunity to improve on first generation drugs in terms of things like efficacy, duration, and safety. And number two, a fact that not everybody fully understands, first generation drugs are all in the public domain. You can't patent them. You can only patent new drugs. And because of that, we were always of the view that ultimately when pharma entered the space, they'd only be interested in entering through drugs that had full patent protection and IP rights, which are next generation drugs.
And pharma has entered the space. You've struck a landmark partnership with a member of the Otsuka Pharma group of companies. They're injecting $5 million and they're going to be paying for expenses through to clinical trials. So give us some more details there. And why is this endorsement so important for Mindset?
So first of all, for those who don't know, Otsuka is really one of the top neuroscience pharma companies in the world. They have a tremendous track record of success in developing drugs to treat mental health disorders. This partnership is really the first of its kind in the psychedelic space. It's the first time a big pharma has moved forward on a new drug program. Mindset's partnered with Otsuka on our two really short-acting families, which potentially solve one of the key issues with psychedelic medication, which is the duration of the trip. It's a hugely advantageous partnership both for Mindset and for Otsuka, but from Mindset's standpoint, it's great because it represents really significant funding at a really low cost of capital from a top strategic. So Otsuka's funding the development of Mindset's Family 2 and Family 4 through the end of phase 1 clinical trials. That funding could be, as much as up to $15 million per program. In addition to that, they've also paid Mindset $5 million upfront. All of that funding is non-dilutive, so none of it dilutes our shareholders in any way. And in return for that, Otsuka has a right of first refusal to negotiate a new deal with Mindset at the end of phase 1. In terms of an endorsement, it's really the best, strongest possible endorsement that Mindset could get on the strength of its drug development programs. Otsuka did a tremendous amount of diligence on Mindset, so really that the endorsement is kind of second to none.
Right, you said it was exhaustive due diligence of more than a year, so it's really interesting. And you've also said, James, that you're not looking to turn Mindset into a psychedelic Pfizer, for example. So how does this deal help your company focus on what you do best, and how do you leverage what Otsuka does best?
The deal really enables Mindset to really double down on what the scientific team is really exceptional at. Our scientists are really world-class drug discovery professionals, designing new IP, creating new drugs, testing them, proving them out. What we don't have to do is go out and hire people at all kinds of different levels of the organization to do some of the really heavy lifting around running clinical trials, dealing with regulators, that kind of thing. We can really get to leverage Otsuka's internal capabilities at that, and that's a huge advantage to Mindset. Represents really potentially quite significant cost savings to the bottom line to Mindset. And it really enables us to focus on what we're really good at.
Your main focus right now is your lead candidate, which is MSP 1014. And you've likened the development of this to the development of aspirin more than 100 years ago. How so?
Well, I think that's a really helpful analogy to help investors and the public understand what we're trying to do with new psychedelic medications. And that is, in the 19th century, it took, many decades for some German chemists to do a lot of scientific work to take really powerful naturally occurring substance, which was the bark of the willow tree that was known for thousands of years to kill pain, and do a whole bunch of hard chemistry work to eventually through a bunch of intermediate steps, turn that into what was the gold standard for pain killing for over a century, which was aspirin. We're comparing what Mindset is doing with naturally occurring psychedelic drugs like psilocybin, which is the psychoactive component of mushrooms, and really doing a lot of heavy lifting to try to create a optimized medication that can work well for largest possible patient groups, be safe, have a really predictable duration, and be an effective approved medication.
And what can investors expect in terms of milestones with MSP 1014 as far as clinical trials, maybe a rough date for that, and then commercialization, because I know biotech is sometimes not easy, and the FDA you have to deal with. So can you give us a timeline?
So Mindset has 4 families of new drugs. MSP 1014 comes from our first family. It's our most advanced compound. And our plan with MSP 1014 this year is to enter into IND-enabling studies, file an application with the FDA later this year, and hopefully begin clinical trials later this year or early next. And then obviously, as it relates to our partnership with Otsuka, that's centered on our 2 short-acting families. We'll be, advancing some candidates from those families, hopefully to clinical trials in partnership with them in the near future.
You said some of your other lead compound candidates are maybe 2 to 3 months behind MSP 1014. Which are the most promising, or is it too early to tell?
It's probably a little early to tell, but part of it is Mindset has a really great problem in that we have over 100 new psychedelic compounds, quite a few of which are showing some really promising signals in preclinical testing. So we have a lot to choose from in terms of what we prioritize in taking forward to clinical trials.
Let's take a step back and look broadly at the psychedelic sector, let's say going out to 2030 or so. You said that the reality could be bigger than the hype. It's a big opportunity for Mindset Pharma. You think you're exceptionally well positioned, even in the pole position. So do you have a rough estimate of the total addressable market going out, again, say 10 years or so? And where does Mindset fit in there? What's the ultimate potential for this company?
The total addressable market for medications like these is, absolutely enormous. There's I think something close to 300 million people worldwide who suffer from, clinical depression. That number grows, more and more, every year. Certainly not helped by the pandemic. And of that 300 million plus, a third of those people don't respond to treatment. So there's really a multi-hundred million person market for these medications. We also have seen really promising signs that psychedelic medication can have efficacy in treating a wider range of mood disorders, beyond simply treatment-resistant depression to things like anxiety, even things like addiction. So unfortunately, because of the mental health crisis, the market for psychedelic medication is really enormous.
But from an investment standpoint, there is opportunity there through Mindset.
There absolutely is. We think, the future of this space very much is going to be, second generation, third generation improved psychedelic medications that have, been improved along the lines of, potentially shorter duration, stronger or modulated effect size, and safer. And second generation drugs are patentable in a way that first generation drugs are not. And therefore, really, next generation drugs, we expect to be the focus of a lot of investment and development by the broader pharma space. And with this partnership, I think we've really affirmed that Mindset is the leader in this really exciting space with a tremendous amount of growth prospects.